Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?
What's up, nerds? Welcome to another episode of the Multiverse Report. We are recapping the week's nerdy news from Themescyira to Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters and everywhere in between. My name is Mike Gibson. With me, as always, is Steve Haller. What's up, Steve?
Well, return to podcasting from my week on the injured reserve list. So,
Yeah,
we had an early.
You feeling okay? You had a back problem.
Yeah, we're good. Thankfully, we recorded early last week because if we tried to record on Sunday, it was not going to happen.
Yikes.
But worked out well. We're back in action. You had a very exciting weekend.
Back
I know
on your
that.
feet.
So, yeah.
Yes, I did. I spent last night, as I've plugged in this podcast several times, I was selling copies of my comic book. You can see behind me, The Amazing Shakes, at a burlesque event called Trek Wars, as you can also see behind Steve. Trek Wars burlesque event at the Palace Theater in Syracuse, New York, put on by the Sisters Burlesque. And I was just telling Steve about it.
I think we're losing Mike here.
Before we went live in another case of
Mike's
you're losing me
in and out.
like audio.
Your choppy is all get out, and
Nothing has
about
changed where
10
I
minutes
am.
behind.
Am I in and out both audio and visually?
Yes.
Literally nothing has changed on my end, but I seem to be very behind because you're just answering a question of yes to something I said a long time ago.
Weird.
So let's see. What do we do? What do we do, Steve?
I don't know. I'd say we keep. Okay, he disappeared. So, yeah, we're rolling with it and trying to see. Did you intentionally leave?
Am I back? I did intentionally leave.
Well, you're
Am I
here
back?
now. Yes, I think.
Okay.
Are you
Hello?
back?
I think I'm back.
Sounds like you're back.
But I thought I was here the whole time. So like
Well-
literally nothing changed for me the entire time you were saying, I think we lost him. I kept answering questions
Well,
and asking questions and
we had lost
know.
you, and I
So
think
we're
we've got you
good?
back. So,
okay. Hooray. Hooray. Anyway, I had a really good time. A bunch of talented performers at the burlesque show last night. I would highly recommend if you get the chance, if you're in the Syracuse, New York area, if you see anything put on by the Sisters, Eerie Erotica, or Gina the Machina, or their sometimes they do their own private shows. They do their Eerie Erotica is putting on a Dungeons and Dragons themed burlesque show this November, so look out for that. I just had a great time. It was super fun. I met
okay.
a lot of cool people, had a lot of great conversations, and saw a lot of great performers. So
You there?
you said okay.
Yeah, you're still cutting in and
the
out,
middle
but
of
keep rolling,
talking?
and I'm
Are you
going to
okay?
try and see if it's something on my end.
Well, yes. Shit. I can close some stuff out. It's the greatest.
This is phenomenal.
That does anything?
Can't tell.
Just really great podcasting.
Oh, it's 100% phenomenal.
Any there? Can't tell. I'm trying to close some
It's
shit out.
until we start going, we're not going to be able to tell.
The
So,
greatest podcast.
no, this is just a tribute.
Okay. Okay.
I might have
anyway,
some work in post on this
I'm
one.
going to keep talking. Yeah. Okay. Maybe we might have to actually edit the first episode we've ever had to edit. This might be it. If we have any new listeners that I met last night that are watching and or listening for the first time, first of all, sorry about the technical difficulties that we never seem to have.
Right. It's normally not this bad.
To this extent. Yeah. But also welcome. And thank you for listening. And thank you for talking to me last night. It was fun to meet you. So let's see. What are we doing tonight? Tonight we're talking about, we got kind of some strike news. We also got a good amount of DC news and some cool Marvel stuff. A couple things that we're more like following up on, the things we talked about last week. We got some new detail or some confirmations on. We'll also be doing reviews of comics that are coming out this week. Steve and I have read an advanced copy of a book coming out this week. We'll get to those as well. And I think that's about it. But, you know, it's a lot of stuff to get through. Still surprised the amount of news that we have since the strike. Like, there hasn't been a week that's been like crazy slow yet, and we are at day 100 of the writer strike, at least. And I'm sure we'll hit a slow period sometime soon, but still surprised that we have enough material to do a podcast each week so far.
Yeah, still cranking it out. It's kind of a weird, like it really is weird that there's still this much news coming out for. I can't imagine what's going to happen when the strike ends and people can actually talk about things again. Mildly worries me. I know, but you know, here we are.
Yeah, it's gonna be wild. Yeah, I feel like we're gonna get just a complete influx of announcements once the strike is over, and people can announce things and say this person is starring in this and has appeared. Like, I'm sure James Gunn has a lot that he wants to tell us about that he can't. You know, like how much more Superman Legacy would we gotten if the strike hadn't happened? You know, because we got those castings right up the day before the strike happened. We were getting Superman casting. So anyway, this is kind of tangential to actual strike news. But you could say that it was probably inspired by the strikes, the writer strike and the actor strike. And if you've been listening to this podcast and paying attention to the stuff we talk about Marvel and their VFX studios, you might have seen this coming. Virtual effects crews that work for Marvel Studios have voted to unionize.
Yay.
Yay. And if you're in the know at all, and like I said, have been paying attention to the news coming out of VFX houses that work for Marvel Studios, you know that you read this news and, like all of us, just gave a slow wave and bid a fond farewell to the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we know it. This means things are going to change if they're able to unionize for sure. VFX union organizer Mark Patch said in a statement, for almost half a century, workers in the visual effects industry have been denied the same protections and benefits their coworkers and crewmates have relied upon since the beginning of the Hollywood film industry. VFX coordinator Bella Huffman also said in the, this is from a Variety article, said, turnaround times don't apply to us. Protected hours don't apply to us, and pay equity doesn't apply to us. Visual effects must become a sustainable and safe department for everyone who suffered far too long and for all newcomers who need to know they won't be exploited. And Steve, when you think about the amount of visual effects that, like the importance of visual effects to the Hollywood film industry in 2023, it's staggering that they don't have their own union, and they've been treated so poorly for the industry depends so heavily on them and the work that they do. And up until now, they've just been treated like shit, and people got away with it. Like the Across the Spider-Verse news that we talked about a few weeks ago. Like, yeah, that sucks. It sucks that they were treated that way, but nobody's saying that they can't be treated that way. There's no union. There's no rules. There's, nothing's protecting them from doing that. That's what Bella Huffman is saying here. So I'm very happy that they have voted to unionize. It's really good. I believe that it's good news. Yeah.
And, I would assume that they would be standing right there with the directors and actors at this point, and should be.
Not the directors. The directors are the
writers and actors.
Fools.
Yeah,
they're the fools that actually made a deal. Like, you got to be thinking that the directors. I'm sure a lot of directors are like,
well,
"Whoa, we got screwed, right?
Yeah.
We got screwed."
Yep.
They got played.
Oh, yeah.
For directors.
But They
yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
ahead.
they 100% deserve to have the representation. They deserve to, improve conditions, especially out of everything that we've heard coming out.
Yeah.
It's been mildly insane what has been happening. So yeah, it's about time.
I agree. And it's going to be very interesting to see how this affects the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because this is specifically VFX crews at Marvel Studios. It's not like the entire VFX industry, although I can imagine that it's going to bleed into other VFX houses for sure. But, Marvel is famous for, if you haven't been listening to this podcast or, checking or hearing these stories, Marvel has become infamous for last minute rewrites and reorganizations and changes to the third acts of films. They start filming movies before the script is done, and all of that chaos ahead of time bleeds into the post production, which includes visual effects. So, like Huffman was saying, like turnaround times don't apply to us, protected hours don't apply to us. Like, if Kevin Feige comes to the VFX crew and says, Spider-Man No Way Home needs a new third act because we're doing this and the movie's coming out in 2 weeks, so figure it out. I hope that's an extreme example, but who knows based on some of these articles that we've read.
From what we've heard, that's not too far off the base.
Not too far off base, for sure. So it'll be very interesting to see. I feel like there's been a lot of things thrown into a lot of monkey wrenches thrown at Marvel recently. The strikes being one, their own hubris in taking on more than they can handle or announcing more than they can handle, and now that their crews are striking, I feel like them treating the VFX houses so poorly is the only reason that until now they've been able to churn out as much as they have. And now that they're not going to be able to do that anymore, that pipeline's going to slow down. Oh, also Bob Iger saying that they're not going to spend as much money on Marvel, and like saying that they've done too much. So like lots of reasons to be curious about the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and their output levels.
I mean,
for sure,
we've been calling for them to turn that dial down for a long time. I don't think
pretty much since we started this podcast. I think we've been talking about that. Yeah.
Well, no, I believe if the Wayback Machine is working correctly, when we started, we had come off of COVID, or we were just coming out of COVID, and we started to see like, I believe both of us were on I was getting Marvel fatigue. COVID hit. We didn't see anything. When WandaVision hit, it was a breath of fresh air. Yeah. And, that time off was probably a good thing. And now here we are in the boat of, it'd be great. A little time off.
A little time off.
I mean, that's kind of what's got me more excited about Star Wars at this point, of whenever they return to the silver screen.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, there's been a dearth of big screen Star Wars content. And they've kept up the relative quality, if you don't count Book of Boba Fett, or at least 4.5 episodes of Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, the debatable quality of some of the shows. Yeah, for sure.
But for the most part, it's been solid. Like even Kenobi, for what they, some panned it, but what they got right, they got very right.
Yeah,
and that's Star Wars. I feel like that's Star Wars in general. And here we are in a Star Wars rant, because that never happens. But like when you hit the highs, the lows, like you can have peaks and valleys. Valleys are fine as long as you get the peaks.
Yep. Star Wars is all about peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
And
outside of Empire Strikes Back, there are plenty of peaks and valleys throughout the entirety of everything.
I just meant movie to movie.
Oh, no.
I'm thinking like
even within
there's
movies.
Peaks and there's valleys. Well, within movies as well. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, and Star Wars is unique, or not unique, but Star Wars is in a better spot than Marvel when it comes to balancing TV and movie stuff. Marvel has painted themselves into this corner where all of their storylines are taking place at the same time. So that adds to it feeling like so much is happening at once, and I have to balance all these things and watch all these things, and I got to watch Ms. Marvel because it's going to connect to the Marvels, and I got to watch WandaVision because it's going to connect to Doctor Strange, and I'm not going to know what's going on. I have to do all this stuff. Like, Star Wars has got themselves in this way better position where all their stuff happens at radically different times.
Yeah.
And currently, all the stuff that's going on in their shows, none of them are taking place in the same time period that the next movie is going to come out, because we've heard the next movie is going to be the New Jedi Order Rey movie, and
right after that it's going to be the Dawn of the Jedi movie,
which is way far in the past. And then we're still going to have all these like post Return of the Jedi shows, or some of them going, except for Andor, which is pre original trilogy. But
well, and that's has the MCU pigeonholed themselves into this like this weird spot where their everything is going on at the same time.
Yeah.
You have right now they're in the perfect spot to break out of that mold when you're sitting in the middle of quote unquote the multiverse saga.
Right.
And like timey-wimey bullshit is exactly what they can do.
Yes, but the reason that all of Marvel stuff has to happen at the same time is because when they come to an Avengers movie, you want to see all those characters interacting. Like, that's like the fun of the MCU, right? Is that when you finally see, I'm just making this up at no confirmation, obviously. When we finally see the Fantastic Four meet Thor or Doctor Strange or whoever else, the new Guardians of the Galaxy or whatever, like, that's going to be exciting and fun and a big deal. And when the new Wolverine fights Hulk or whatever, that's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, they all have to take place in the same time, which is part of the leads to the feeling of being overwhelmed by having to keep track of all these stories. Because like, at least when you're like, okay, in Star Wars, you're like, okay, this takes place 40 years after A New Hope. You're like, okay, I remember what happened in New Hope, but I don't have to wonder where Luke Skywalker is while I'm watching whatever, the Ahsoka show or whatever else, because it's just a different time period. It's fine.
Now, that said, you don't, though, because they've alluded to Miles Morales. They've alluded to a lot of things. You've got the multiverse thing. Lean into the ultimate dimension.
Hey,
like, run a complete, like, last week I talked about Ultimate Invasion. I made a huge faux pas by being 11:45 at night looking down and referring to the maker as Charles Xavier instead of Reed Richards.
Yeah,
but
you were so ashamed by that. You sent me a text.
I literally texted Mike. I'm like, I killed my nerd cred. But
it's okay. It's okay.
I got many comforting responses. It was great. But like, lean into the Ultimate Universe and like where you can still have all these weird team ups. It may not be the exact same characters you're used to.
Yeah.
But and the like how they're interacting, but you can do different things and make it so that we're not seeing the same rote situation over and over and over again.
Yeah. I would like. I'd be fine if they did that, but even I would like if they positioned themselves in more of a way where, and I guess this is kind of hard to do because I'm just thinking of it with like groups like Fantastic Four, X-Men. Like, I would love it if we just got like 3 X-Men movies or like whatever, multiple X-Men movies that don't cross over to the rest of the MCU until we get to an Avengers movie. And there's a reason for them to cross over. Like, give me 2 Fantastic Four movies, 2 X-Men movies, and then, whatever other Avenger solo movies or whatever. But then don't team anything up until the Avengers movie, because then it makes it feel special. And if you're just movie hopping all the time, I don't know. Because now I'm kind of talking myself out because like part of the uniqueness
or phase 1 and phase 2.
Yes, exactly. More like phase 1 and phase 2, where we were all losing our minds because the first time we're seeing whoever meet whoever was in an Avengers movie and it was a big deal, and not now where everyone's just everywhere. And there's some coolness to that for sure, because it makes it feel like a living, breathing universe or whatever. But at the same time, it also causes the
right
overwhelmingness,
it puts
and
your writers
everything
into
feels the same. Everything
Right.
feels the same. There's no uniqueness to the movies because they all have to feel like they take place in the same neighborhood, more or
Yeah.
less. But
Yep.
yeah.
Well,
Anyway.
what's next in the rundown? Something happening
Not
in the same neighborhood that it had happened in previously.
Yes. This is something that we talked about last week,
Yes.
and I was gonna say I think we were. I mean, I still think that we were right. I still think Gal Gadot is not coming back as Wonder Woman.
Okay.
I still think that, regardless of the fact that she gave an interview this past week with Flaunt. I don't know what that is. A magazine?
Didn't know that was a
Website?
thing.
I don't know. I just wrote it down because that's what it said. And she said the following. She said, quote, I was invited. Oh, sorry. I should recap if you didn't hear us talk last week. Last week, apparently back in June, Gal Gadot gave a quote saying that she was going to develop Wonder Woman 3 with James Gunn and Peter Safran as the two of them begin building out their new DC movie universe. I don't believe that is true. I believe that James Gunn and Peter Safran are going to cast a new Wonder Woman because they've cast a new Superman. They're going to cast a new Batman. And if you're doing that, you got to cast a new Wonder Woman. Like, if you're going to reboot the universe, reboot the universe. You can bring in some minor characters as holdovers, Peacemaker, etc., whatever. But the big three, if you're recasting any of them, you should recast all of them. That's how I feel. Still how I feel. And then we're like, oh, this interview was back in June, so whatever could have changed by then. But this past week, she said the following. I was invited to a meeting with James Gunn and Peter Safran, and what they told me, and I'm quoting, you're in the best hands. We're going to develop Wonder Woman 3 with you. We love you as Wonder Woman. You've got nothing to worry about. So time will tell. That was her quote. But then also Variety released an article stating that their sources confirm that Warner Brothers Discovery is currently not in development of Wonder Woman 3 on any level. And that the only Wonder Woman related project currently on the slate is the previously announced by James Gunn series for Max called Paradise Lost, which is like a Game of Thrones-like series about the origins and history of Paradise Island, Themescyira.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, man. I think I heard Jeff Snyder say this on his podcast this week. Like, Gal Gadot is Wonder Woman until they cast a new Wonder Woman. That's just like
right. Henry Cavill
that's
was
just what it is.
Superman until they cast
until he wasn't.
David Cornswine as Superman.
Yep, exactly. And that's just how it is. That's just how it is. And maybe this is her trying to save some more face. Maybe this is her trying to win some favor with fans or with Gunn and Safran. Who knows? Yeah. But in my heart of hearts, I do not believe she'll be back as Wonder Woman.
I actively guffawed when
yes,
Brian in the chat noted that if you can't trust Flaunt Magazine, who can you trust?
Who can you trust? Exactly. Flaunt Magazine.
Yeah, they're
cradle
right
of journalism.
Up there, I mean, for all I know, they may actually be in whatever lane that they're in, but
sure,
can confirm I've never heard of them.
Me either, but hey, if they scored an interview with Gal Gadot, they got to be pretty reputable.
Yeah,
I guess. You know what I mean? Speaking of James Gunn and Peter Safran and their new DC universe,
they're reputable.
They are very reputable, and they have told us that the very first project that we're going to see come out of their leadership is an animated series for Max called Creature Commandos. We got some updates on Creature Commandos this week. For those of you who don't remember, Creature Commandos was a project that was announced when they announced the first part of their slate, less than half of their full DCU slate. It's kind of like a Suicide Squad-esque team, although all the characters are monsters, pretty much, with the exception of Rick Flag Sr., I believe will be the leader of the team. However, other characters include Frankenstein, the Bride of Frankenstein, Dr. Phosphorus, and Weasel, etc. James Gunn confirmed this week that the voice recording for this series has been completed and that the series will run for 7 episodes. And that will also cross over with the Viola Davis Waller series, which was in production at one point. And that makes sense because, if this is like a Suicide Squad-ish team of whatever, then it makes sense that she may be somehow involved in telling them where to go and what to do.
Yeah.
So
no, that'll be.
Who knows?
Yeah. The fact that he's already crossing things over with the Waller series, which I don't know, has any word been on whether that's through production or where
I'm not sure where that
sits
is.
or anything. So it might be crossing over with something that doesn't happen for like 3 years.
I know. I think it is in production because we
was.
heard about it a long time ago.
Yeah.
But then it was officially announced when they announced the slate. So I think it was in production on some level. I don't think they were shooting necessarily, maybe. But I think he said that it's going to come out. Pre-strike. I think he said it was going to come out before Superman Legacy. So maybe they were deeper into it than we thought. I don't know. I'd never heard that they were shooting, but that doesn't mean that they weren't.
Right. I can say I did enjoy the David Harbour quote in that. He noted, and I quote, "I didn't know what it was when it was sent to me."
Yeah.
I met with James.
Yeah.
He sort of laid out a lot of stuff. It's really exciting. He considers it some of the best stuff he's ever written. It's hilarious. The character's great. I mean, it's Frankenstein. Like, of course, the character's great.
Yeah.
I think it's been announced that it's Frankenstein, and it's a wildly colorful, terrific character. I'm not one to break, but during this, it's wildly funny stuff. It's hilarious, and I can't wait for people to see it. Like, the fact that he had no clue what was going on when they gave it to him. It's like,
I had never heard of Creature Commandos before. I've gone back on the digital app and read a bunch of it, and it's fun. It's crazy. It's just like it's monsters fighting in World War II. It's they're like,
there you go,
sent in to defeat Nazis and stuff, which is super cool. It will be interesting to see. Going back to the fact that this is going to cross over with Viola Davis's Waller series.
Yep.
This is an animated show. Waller's live action. And James Gunn has said that they're casting people to do the voices of these characters with keeping them in mind to play them in live action down the line. So we might get that sooner than later. We might see David Harbour as Eric Frankenstein in live action sooner than later, if that's the crossover that's going to happen, because it's not like they're going to show up as cartoon characters in the Waller series.
Well, you just move the Hellboy horns down to the side, and then you're good.
Yeah, down to the bolts in his neck. Yeah, absolutely. David Harbour also went on to say in the same interview, I think he was asked about how long he was going to be playing the character, or how long he had signed up for. And he said, "It feels like this new world where they don't lock you in anymore. I feel like Marvel learned that lesson as well. If you don't want to do it, I don't think they are," meaning DC, "is going to make you do 20 movies. But I think it's something where I just love the world so much that it's a joy to do and a joy to work with someone so creative. So if they want me to do 8 or 10 years of this, I feel like I'll check my schedule, but I'll try to free up some time."
Right.
So he's clearly having fun voicing this character at whatever degree he's been playing that. He's having a lot of fun.
That's also the benefit of working with Gunn and Safran and like the team that they've assembled, which, and I guess this kind of goes to something we haven't touched on, but like that was kind of the shine Feige had for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first through Endgame, that was probably like, that was very similar to a quote we would hear about, Marvel and Feige, and like, yeah, we're interested. It's fun. We're doing stuff. Like, it's a great creative team. We're doing the stuff. Whereas you don't hear the puff pieces as much anymore coming out of that side of things.
I know. Yeah. I think it's also the fact that, I guess I don't know if James Gunn is actually directing these episodes or if there's like an animation director, but I'm sure he's like the producer of it. And I'm sure he's heavily involved because he wrote it. And I think if James Gunn is in charge of the show and he's the one on set having this vision for this series, having written this series, knowing this series' place in the overall story that he's going to be telling, if actors have questions like that, James Gunn is going to be the one to be like, I can tell you that, I can feel you that, I'm here, like, it's different. Like if someone asks Kevin Feige something about the writing, he's got to like call the writer over because he didn't write it. He may know, I'm sure, because he's involved in that stuff. But like hearing it from the guy that wrote it and the guy whose vision it is, it's there's a different weight there.
100%.
Yeah. Speaking of DC things coming out, Blue Beetle comes out this week. I believe I'm going to go see it Thursday night. Steve, I don't know if you're doing anything.
I will be in the middle of nowhere camping.
Okay.
So
probably
not
no
going to be in a
theaters.
movie theater with you.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll be able to talk about it next week if all goes according to plan.
Nice. I am finally able to see Ninja Turtles tomorrow.
Ooh, I saw Ninja Turtles.
Nice.
I thought it was great.
Nice.
I liked it a lot. Can I say one thing about it?
Yeah.
You can, because I haven't seen every Ninja Turtles thing ever. I've seen a handful of the movies. I didn't see the Michael Bay ones. They did like an animated one in like 2000. Yeah, I didn't see the animated 2007 one either.
That was actually legit. That's where
I heard it was very good. I heard it was very good.
Yep.
This was the first movie. This is not. I don't believe this is. It's not a really spoiler. I don't ever remember an incarnation of the Ninja Turtles where part of the characterization of the 4 turtles was that they wish they were normal teenagers, but they can't be because they're mutant turtles that have to live in a sewer, so they're not shunned by human society. I don't ever remember that, and it's such an absolutely natural thing to have them deal with.
So the 2012 iteration, and I only know this because my son has become obsessed and is watching through the 2012 series,
like cartoon series.
Yeah.
Okay.
They had Mikey did that a lot in that series.
Okay.
So there's a whole thing where he ends up in that series. He wants to befriend humans so much that he goes out and becomes he like tries to become friends with Shredder's apprentice.
Oh wow. Okay.
Like doesn't know it's him, but
sure.
Like,
okay.
Yeah, it's they end up touching on it, but yeah, that's something that's always been missing outside of that. That was the only other reference I can think of to it.
100%.
And I've read a lot of Turtles.
Yeah, I was like this is great. It's so natural. It's such a great storyline for them, and it makes perfect sense that they would feel that way. But it's great. You and I can talk about it in more detail after you see it, because I don't want to spoil things much. They do change some like origin stuff a little bit, but in a way that I found
actually works.
And
nice,
interesting. Yeah, I liked it a lot. And my son liked it a lot. My son's laughing out loud.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah,
I'm going with 2 6-year-olds, so it should be interesting.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, back to Blue Beetle.
Other origin stories.
Other origin series. Some early reactions have come out, and they are mostly positive from what I've read. Variety was reporting a lot of early reactions. Some were calling it like a little on the silly side, but I don't know. I think like that's debatable. But a lot of people were. The film was being called things like a huge surprise, saying it was action-packed and a love letter to Latino culture. People seem to be really praising the Latino representation. And so much so that 27 Latino Hollywood organizations came together, penned and signed an open letter encouraging the Latino community to support the film, saying, amongst other things, it's just an excerpt from it. Stories are more than entertainment. They are powerful. They are a powerful tool for social change that fuels our collective movement to build a more equitable, just world for those who have been historically underrepresented and marginalized. We were particularly optimistic about this summer. We were approaching a critical turning point for Latino representation, and we saw the return of some of our favorite shows and characters, the launch of exciting new series, and prepared for a groundbreaking moment on the big screen. First superhero movie directed, written, and starring Latinos. We were hopeful that our long overdue cultural moment had finally arrived. For the sake of current and future generations of Latinos, we will not delay progress any longer. We invite you to join us in our effort to amplify the work that countless Latino artists have worked so hard to create. It's important that we show up for them at a time when they are not able to promote their projects, referencing the strike. And I think that's really cool. And I don't have a lot of hope for this movie being like a box office smash, because I just feel like people, after The Flash, it's kind of hard to think that people haven't. It's hard not to think that people have shut the door on DC films in general currently.
Right, until the
reboot. But we'll see, because I think one of the biggest things this movie has going for it is the fact that it has a Latino lead, and it's speaking to a community that has never been directly spoken to from a big budget superhero film. And if it's good, then it might have some legs. Word of mouth might help it out.
Yeah.
So, I think I saw that it's projected to do like 30 million opening weekend, which is a little bit low, but I don't know. It also doesn't have the budget of the Flash either, so it can make less money. It can make the same amount of money the Flash made, and have a much bigger, you know, and look like a more of a success for sure than the Flash, because the Flash did not make very much money despite being a $300 million movie. Wowzers.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see it for sure, and I will share my thoughts next week having seen it. Speaking of DC movies I'm not sure that I want to see, director David Ayer says that his cut of Suicide Squad, David Ayer wrote and directed the first Suicide Squad movie, the much maligned Suicide Squad movie. Although I believe there are things to like in that movie, overall, I find it not great. He cast Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. I'm very thankful that he did that. And I think Will Smith was great as Deadshot. I think a lot of the cast in that movie was pretty good, but it's just not.
Suffered
Yeah,
from the movie being that movie.
Yeah, I mean, he admitted that he didn't even really read any Suicide Squad comics before he wrote it. So he just wasn't really. Yeah, and he's admitted that he's made mistakes and stuff. Blah 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 blah. Long story short, the studio, after the reception to Batman versus Superman being like, "Whoa, this movie is like dour and down and dark, and this is not what we're looking for in superhero movies." The Warner Brothers hired a trailer studio that cuts movie trailers together to edit the film. And so the final cut of Suicide Squad is not a cut that director David Ayer approved of himself. It was a studio cut. He has his own cut of the film that exists or could exist were he to be able to finish it. And similar to the people wanting the Snyder cut of Justice League released, there have been a loud a vocal minority of people that want the David Ayer cut of Suicide Squad released. It's a whole thing that I'm not really super passionate about. But anyway, in a response to a fan on Twitter, I think David Ayer said something about his cut of Suicide Squad on Twitter, which he often does. A Twitter fan was like, "You should stop talking about this. It's not cool," or whatever. And he responded to that fan saying, "What's your advice on how to navigate this situation with grace? There's a genuine curiosity and interest from a lot of people, and I'm aware of another group of people that have fun mocking the film. Your comment is a perfect example of how many are magnetically drawn in discussion to the 2016 film in a negative way. All I know is my unseen film plays much better than the studio release. The interest in my cut being shown seems real and organic, and Gunn told me it would have its time to be shared. He absolutely deserves to launch his DC universe without more drama about old projects." He went on a little bit more, but according to David Ayer, James Gunn has told him that eventually his cut of Suicide Squad will get released. But I don't think it's going to be anytime soon because he's going to have to launch his whole universe. So I think we're talking like decades from now.
Right.
But is it something we care about? Do we want to see David Ayer Suicide Squad? You probably don't at all.
I mean, would I watch it? Probably, maybe.
Yeah, I would watch it.
But do we need it? Probably, maybe not.
Certainly not. I certainly don't need it, and I don't expect it to be like that. I mean, maybe it's better. Like I'm sure it plays better, but I don't know that I can't imagine that I would like it because like he still wrote those characters. He wrote that dialogue, you know.
Yeah.
And I think he misunderstood a lot of the characters, and I don't know. I'm sure if you're out there, if you're listening to this and you are dying to see the David Ayer cut of Suicide Squad, let us know. Tell us why. But I'm not feeling it. And maybe 10 years from now, when I'm another 10 years removed from the first Suicide Squad movie, maybe I'll think it makes more sense, and maybe I'll be excited to see it. But who knows? Steve, remember at the beginning of this podcast when we were supposed to be talking about the strike, and then we talked about the Marvel Cinematic Universe for like 10 minutes?
Yes.
Do you want to talk about more Marvel stuff right now?
Sure.
This is going back to another thing that we talked about last week. Was it last week we talked about Madam Webb? I think it was, right?
Yes,
or 2 weeks ago. I don't remember. You found out while we were talking, you found out by looking at Wikipedia that Sydney Sweeney was playing Julia Carpenter, which I think we'd heard rumored, but Wikipedia seemed to think that it was factual. And we all know Wikipedia, most trusted source of information out there.
100%.
Certainly better than they used to be. They cite their sources. But anyway, as if we didn't break that news last week on this very show, Sydney Sweeney gave an interview to Variety. It was actually a whole a piece on her and her career. Came out this week where she confirmed via her own mouth that she is indeed playing Julia Carpenter, aka Spider-Woman. And she said about being cast, I was freaking out, of course. I went straight to the comic store and I bought every comic that mentioned my character. I think it's different from what people expect from a superhero movie. And that's all she said about it. So, one, I love when actors get cast as a superhero and say that they go to the comic book store and read absolutely everything that they can. Love it. Love it. Love hearing it. Love seeing it. The quote about, I think it's different from what people expect from a superhero movie. Steve, what do you think of that quote?
Sure. We'll just go with that.
Well,
I don't get it. Like it's what people expect. It's a superhero movie. It is what it is.
But Steve, we don't really know what this movie is. It's a weird character, and we haven't seen anything about it. Madam Webb is not inherently a superhero. Madam Webb is a weird old lady that sits in a weird, strange, spidery universe space and watches all the spider people. All right? More or less?
From what I can gather of her.
Yeah.
Haven't read much Madam Web over the years, but...
You don't have Madam Web issue 1?
No.
I don't think there is such a thing. But for a character to be made about that movie, I think it's possible that this could be different from what people expect from a superhero movie. You know?
Now, I think, if I'm remembering right, Madam Web is technically a mutant, though she is not in the MCU, so I guess probably not.
Yeah,
because
probably not.
That's how that works.
Yeah. Not anymore, she's not.
Yeah.
So I think it's possible that she's accurate in that quote. It's possible. But on the other hand, I also feel like we've heard people say something similar to this about just the most generic superhero movies ever. Like,
right.
Ours is different because we do this thing, and it's like, oh, okay, well, I went to see it and it just looks like every other superhero movie. So thanks for the marketing. So I guess, this movie's still a huge question mark. And when we last talked about it, I came down on being more interested in it, I think, than you.
Yes, I believe you did.
I'm trying to stay positive about it is all. So we'll see.
I will shoot for staying relatively neutral.
Yeah.
Because that's the best I can do.
This should be, Madam Web is the movie that we should go to together and record an out of theater reaction. I feel like that would be, it's like,
that would be.
Unless the trailers change our minds, like right now, it's like, it's just such a question mark. We just don't know. We just don't know anything.
No, we know nothing.
And I honestly, I can't imagine what it is. No. I have no idea. I have no basis. Because it's called Madam Web. It's not called Spider-Woman.
Right.
It's called Madam Web. If you say it's called Spider-Woman, I get a general idea of what this movie's going to be like. Because it's called Madam Web, I have no idea.
So February 2024. February 14th. Guess we got a Valentine's Day date,
Steve.
buddy.
Steve, will you be my Madam Web?
God. Why would you put that out on Valentine's Day, too?
Maybe it's a romance. We don't know what this movie is, Steve.
It could be.
We don't know.
I mean, so Dakota Johnson is Madam Web.
Yes.
And Sydney Sweeney is the second Madam Web? because that's what
But
Julia
before-
Carpenter becomes. But
yeah,
before,
but before she's second Madam Web, she is straight up Spider-Woman.
true.
So maybe she's just gonna be Spider-Womaning around, which I think would be awesome. Maybe this is like a Batman Beyond kind of thing, where like Madam Web is at some headquarters and
She's just the
she's in the
second
ear of
everything.
what's that?
She was the second Spider-Woman, and she was the second Madam Web. Like, can she just be something original?
Yeah, I know, right? Come on, Julia.
Pull it together.
You know what I
Come on.
mean? Like that would be cool.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
There would be.
I don't know. We'll see. Now I want that to be it, and I'll be
Yeah.
mad if it's not.
Again, Brian brings up a great point in the chat. It's Sony. If it's not awful, then that's great for them.
Yeah.
Live action.
Yeah,
Let's
I agree.
make sure we specify that.
I agree. I
because
think
their animation
few
is its own.
a few weeks ago, I think I said this on mic, or it was after we signed off, but if you look at the all Spider-Man movies, there's more bad ones than good ones, or there's more debatable ones than
Right.
good ones.
There's more questionable ones than
Yes, there's like a handful, like Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, Homecoming.
and I was
People
going to say
seem
the
to really like.
Hollands, like at least 2 of the 3 are well,
Probably, but then like I don't love.
Homecoming is great, and then
Yeah.
the other 2 are like a mixed bag. Because
Yes,
like No Way
'cause-
Home, even, which was a critical success or like critical and box office success, if you go back and rewatch it, it doesn't hold up nearly as well. Like it's a nostalgia trip.
Yeah, like I didn't love it the first time I saw it.
Right.
And like I was in the severe minority of people that didn't love that movie. And I'm sure there's people that still
Right.
are
Now I
out there that
rewatched
do,
it.
but
I'm
like,
like, oh, Mike's got a point. Okay.
yeah, it's like the sweatiest movie ever. It's
Yeah.
like bending over backwards to make all these things happen. So like it's great. Like if it's crazy to me that if you look at the entire, like there's a ton of Spider-Man, especially if you include like the Venom stuff and Morbius and like all the Sony spin-off stuff. Even if you include the animated Spider-Verse movies, there's still more questionable ones than there are surefire great movies.
You know what I've just realized? The only of all the stupid Spider-Man spin-off movies I've ever seen is Morbius.
You've never seen the Venom movies?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man, you gotta watch the Venoms.
Yeah. I've heard it
They're worth
can't be a
watching.
good time, but
I
like,
mean,
don't take them too seriously and you're fine.
yeah. Here's why I didn't hate Venom. Like I recognize that I don't think it's a great movie,
Right.
but I didn't see it when it came out in theaters. I waited long enough to kind of understand what it was going to be before I saw it, and I was like, "Yep, okay." Is what it's. I went in knowing like it's not going to be the movie that I want it to be, so I'm just going to let it tell me what it is.
Right.
And it worked. I was like, "Yep, that was fun. It was fine."
Nice.
But you should watch them. You should watch them
All right. I'll see what I can come up with.
someday. Moving on to, it's funny that I said, do you want to talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe? And neither of these stories take place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Actually, no, this one does. This one
there you
does.
go.
Forgot. Deadpool 3. We're talking about Deadpool 3 right now. This is a report or rumor, should we say? There's like, I've said this all the time. I don't love talking about rumors on the show, but as announcements start drying up from the strike, we may start doing that a little more. There's a Twitter scooper whose Twitter handle is Can We Get Toast, who's been dropping scoops left and right. But it's kind of like, you're dropping scoops about stuff that haven't come out yet, and we don't know if it's true. So, like, are you good at this, or are you just making stuff up? I don't know yet. We shall see. But Twitter scooper Can We Get Toast is reporting that the villain of Deadpool 3, which has not been officially announced yet, I think we've heard that there's going to be 2 villains, one from the MCU and one not from the MCU. This scooper saying that the villain for Deadpool 3 is played by Emma Corrin, and the character is Cassandra Nova. Boom.
Yeah. So
Cassandra
for anyone
Nova
who doesn't know, Cassandra Nova is a, for lack of a better description, supervillain, above and beyond. Human, not human, all sorts of whatever. Technically, I believe a Mumadry.
Is that true?
Was a parasitic life form that somehow entwined with Charles Xavier before he was born, and then technically is his sister because of
Yes.
some weird things. And like it's standard X-Men. Like if you think something's cut and dry, it's way more convoluted than it actually is.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of the same power set as Xavier, telepath, etc.
Incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and not a good person by any stretch.
Not at all. I thought she was straight up his sister.
I think the parasite embodied the body of his sister, or so. Like there was some weird thing. Yeah.
I thought it was like a. I thought that they were twins, and that he. This is incredibly X-Men-y.
Oh,
that
100%.
Even as a fetus, Charles Xavier was so powerful that he could sense that his sister was evil and tried to telepathically murder her in the womb. That's the origin that I remember.
That is also the most Charles Xavier thing that you could possibly do.
Yes.
Because for anyone who doesn't know, Charles Xavier is not a good man.
He's not a good guy. Yeah.
He leads the good guys. He's not a good guy.
Yeah. So Cassandra Nova was introduced in the Grant Morrison run on X-Men in the early 2000s. She was also ended up being a villain in the first run of Astonishing X-Men, which is the first time that I learned of her and knew who she was.
The Grant Morrison
it's basically
was its own thing.
Yeah. They are. So yeah, I don't know what I was about to say. Lost my train of thought, but yeah. So she's basically just an evil. I mean, too long didn't read. Cassandra Nova is an evil version of Charles Xavier.
Yes.
Yep. Which is terrifying because Charles Xavier is incredibly powerful.
Right. Charles Xavier himself is terrifying.
Yeah.
Evil version, even worse. Emma Corrin definitely. They'll do a solid job with whatever they're cast in, but I could see it. Like.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think it's cool that they're doing it. I mean, it's Deadpool, so it's a little outside the box of a villain. But I think it's cool that they're doing like an X-Men villain that is less familiar, so they can kind of do their own thing.
Right.
And I don't know. There's so many hardcore Cassandra Nova fans out there. They're gonna be mad if they don't do a certain version of her. You know what I mean?
Right. Unless you're a
certain
stupid X-Men fan, like have read too much. There's probably not a ton of like amazingly strong feelings on Cassandra Nova.
I mean, I'm sure those people are out there.
100%. And like, there's plenty of people that have read way more X books than I have that I'm sure have way more strong feelings than I do. But the fact that they're like, when you ask a general nerd of X-Men villains, Cassandra Nova is not going to come to the front of their list.
Right.
So.
Yep. But we'll see if Can We Get Toast is correct, and that she's gonna be the villain of Deadpool 3. We shall see. Steve, you're gonna be excited about this.
Am I?
Yes, it's been announced that they are making a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin video game.
Ooh, I am going to be excited about that.
Yeah, from Nickelodeon, THQ Nordic, and Black Forest Games. They announced it today with a teaser trailer, kind of like dour and ominous teaser trailer.
I mean, that fits the book.
Yeah, assumedly going to tell the story of the book, just an adaptation of the series. Steve, you have read this series, and you enjoyed quite a bit.
I highly recommend this series for anyone who hasn't read it or is interested at all in the Turtles after what happens after we know them. The trailer is ominous as you see each of the 4 candles being snuffed out. And one remaining, which is the Last Ronin, which is the one turtle remaining, which I'm pretty sure I've said numerous times on the podcast, so I'm not gonna hold back on it. But the last turtle that anyone would ever expect to be the last one remaining.
It's cool. They save it as a. It's been spoiled for me. I don't think for you, but I read it. They save it as a reveal in the book, don't they? Like you don't know for a while reading it.
For the first couple of pages, you're like, you're in the dark, and then you
Oh,
realize
this is the
who it
pages. Oh, okay. I didn't know. I thought it was like
It's not a couple
issues
books or
in.
anything.
Oh,
No,
okay.
it's
Because it's cool, like because the one that's left over is just carrying all their weapons.
Yeah.
All of the deceased turtles' weapons. So you can't really tell.
Yeah, the cover of
who
the
it is.
first trade is just it's like a picture of the a turtle and of course they're in the books, if I'm remembering right. It's been about a year since I read them. Still rocking the Eastman and Laird. Everybody has a red.
Yeah.
So you think it's Raph because it's red.
Right.
But
it's just
they have
a callback to the
the
original
classics, and they have they have the nunchaku, they have a bow, they have the katana, and everything in the size like all on their back.
The shell, yeah.
So you don't know who it is, and you don't know why one turtle has all of the weapons until you break into it
until you find out. Yeah, it's funny. After my son and I saw the new Mutant Mayhem movie, we went to the comic book store and he bought a Ninja Turtles comic. But then he was also looking at Ninja Turtles toys, and
Which
they have
comic book store would that be?
original.
We haven't mentioned them yet, so
It's true. Our sponsor, Funky Town Comics. They have like toys that are designed after the original series, and he was like, "Dad, these toys are wrong. Leonardo doesn't have a red mask. Why is Leonardo wearing a red mask? This toy is wrong."
I had
like,
that
well,
conversation
buddy.
with my son the other day down there. I was like, "See these? These are when Dad actually knew them."
Yeah. It's funny. So obviously they just announced it, I think today. So there's no date on when the game's coming out, but as the trailer says at the end, it's going to be for PS5 and Xbox, which I think is cool. Like when I first started reading the article about the announcement, for some reason I was like, oh, is this going to be just like a phone game or like a something,
right?
But I was like, oh no, they're taking it, full next gen consoles. So like
Spider-Man cool. PS5 with a turtle. I'm all in.
Right? I know. Like that would be really cool.
Yeah.
That would be really cool. Or like, Arkham City or whatever, but with a Ninja Turtle.
Yeah, that Arkham Shadow of Mordor style play would be awesome.
It'd be really awesome.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I played a Ninja Turtles video game. And I guarantee you the last time I did it, I was probably 12 years old standing in an arcade.
I was just going to say, it had to have been the arcade game. That was definitely the last one I've played.
Yep.
Although
no, I wasn't a kid. I was an adult, and I was at the Rochester Museum of Play playing that exact Ninja Turtles game.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, the what was it? There was it NES had one that was like ridiculously hard.
Yeah, I think I know.
Had like a top-down view, and then it would like you'd drive around the city, and then it would cut to the side scroller.
Oh, yes.
And that was I played the hell out of that game.
Very difficult.
Yeah,
but staple of my childhood.
Absolutely.
Yep.
It's amazing what we bang our heads against as kids.
Yeah. Should we do some comics reviews?
Might as well.
You want me to go first, or do you want to go first this week?
I might as well.
All right, Steve. What book did you get to review? This is a book that's coming out this Wednesday, New Comic Book Day.
No, this is a book that came out last Wednesday.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
And on the X-Men train from earlier, the Astonishing Iceman, a 6-part miniseries by Camillus native Steve Orlando.
Yep.
So he's everywhere now. It seems to be. So Steve Orlando wrote it. Pencils by Lon Medina, and this cover. Jesus Size does the A cover. This cover, of course, I mean, you can tell just by the art who it was. It's 100% a Scotty Young cover. And strangely enough, I wasn't going to pick up Astonishing Iceman, and I had brought my son down to the comic shop, and he's like, "Oh, this looks really cool." And I'm like, "Yeah, I do love a good Bobby story." So grabbed it, and figured, might as well use that as the review this week, because the other option was Barnstormers 1, which I will I'll probably get to at a later date to read.
Scott Snyder.
And give you a review on that. But as you can see, Barnstormers is extremely thick.
Oh, that's like a double issue
It's
at least.
like at least a giant size. And I don't know if I doubt there's a page count, but it's huge. So there was no chance in hell I could get to it.
Yeah.
So Astonishing Iceman, very, very good. So for anyone who is in the X sphere, during the Hellfire Gala, Bobby, when Orcus comes in and raids and starts this quote unquote Fall of X event, Bobby is a casualty.
Oh,
or was thought to be.
Classic.
However, Mr. Omega Level ends up surviving, but is now tied to his base in Antarctica. That Romeo, his better half, who is an Inhuman, is also helping him project himself to places. He's an empath, and there's this whole weird dynamic between the two of them that's great. And there's him, you can see it setting up him only being able to, I guess, coalesce as Bobby Drake for so long. So
before he has to revert to like full
before
ice.
He has to like go back to Antarctica, like to the base. Like he can only go out in public for so long. So
wow.
it's setting up kind of a dynamic there that's going to be interesting. So it's a 6-part mini that I mean, I would highly recommend this as a jumping on point, especially for a quick hitter 6-issue shot. Like it's not like it's a long ongoing. And so far everything I've read from Fall of X, because I did also read Immortal X-Men, like I think 14 was the one that dropped that's part of Fall of X. This X-Men kind of lost me for a little bit in the middle of the post-Hickman, pre-Fall of X era.
Yeah, a lot going on.
This, even though there's still way too much going on, this might have me back on the wagon.
Nice.
So the combination of what's going on plus this mini from Orlando is it's real solid.
Awesome. Yeah. Astonishing Iceman just came out last week.
Yep.
Still available in your local comic book store. I am reviewing upcoming issue Harley Quinn Black, White, and Redder #2. A few weeks ago, I reviewed #1 favorably. And I gotta say, big fan of #2. Big fan of #2.
Nice.
And again, it's there's 3 different stories from 3 different creative teams, including Kelly Thompson as a writer and Annie Wu on the art, Brant and Stein, Ryan Parrott, and Luana Vecchio. And I had a kind of like an epiphany. I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this about Harley Quinn. About kind of like an epiphany of how to describe her character. And I think 80% of the time, Harley Quinn is a Looney Tunes character, and she should be thought of as such, more or less.
That like weirdly makes sense,
right? She's like a She's like a dangerous Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny is pretty dangerous, I guess, if you're his enemy. But like, she's trying to have fun. She's trying to like, she's about mischief, and doesn't necessarily doesn't always want to murder people. She's like is causing chaos and stuff, and just kind of being wacky about it. And she gets into like weird misadventures, and but then the other 20%, because she's a Looney Tunes character most of the time, when you get to the other 20%, that is actually her showing some kind of like inner emotion or feeling, or referencing the fact that she threw away a career as a psychologist. Like she has a PhD, like that kind of stuff, like her real humanity, it hits a little bit harder because you're seeing through the veil of this Looney Tunes character, and all of a sudden you're like seeing some real emotion. So this issue, #2 of Harley Quinn Black, White, and Redder, is exactly that. The first 2 stories are her as a Looney Tunes character, and the third one has some like pathos and emotion to it. And the first one is the Kelly Thompson and Annie Wu. She decides that she hates her origin story because she's so tied to the Joker, and it's kind of like a meta reference that people will always connect her to the Joker because of her origin. So she decides, she kidnaps Zatanna and makes Zatanna magically change her origin so she has Batman's origin. So then it turns like then she's like dressed like Batman all of a sudden and is like being but then she goes, the people in the bar are like, oh yeah, there's Harley Bat or whatever she's calling herself, and she's like, but she can't. Yeah, I don't know if she like has an actual name. I'm trying to skim right now, but saying like, oh yeah, sure she's intimidating, but the Joker gets her every single time. It's embarrassing, like like Batman. Think of it, And so she's like, nope, that didn't work. She goes back to the standard. She's like, make me Superman, and so then she's like, hilariously like super buff looking super version of Harley like
Yep.
and it just keeps not working and she keeps changing, so it's fun that you get to see her literally like Bugs Bunny in like different costumes and like looking different until she comes to the realization that she doesn't need a new origin and her origin is perfect because she's the only one that defeated the Joker and left him like that kind of thing. So super cool. And then there's one where it starts off where Robin is accepting an award on the behalf of the League of Super Pets. The League of Super Pets have won some kind of like pet show.
Okay.
And then Harley interrupts them with the Legion of Doominals, including the Squidler and Barkside, which I thought were very funny pun animal names for evil DC pets. And then it's just like them competing against the League of Super Pets is very funny and silly and wacky. And then the last one is her sitting across from Commissioner Gordon in a diner, having just committed some acts of craziness in said diner, and kind of talking about her life and how she feels about Gotham City and why she always comes back and why she keeps getting in trouble and her opinions on Commissioner Gordon and stuff. It's just really cool, like little bit more down to earth, a little bit more like real version of Harley. And so like I know it's really cool. Like this is a really great series if you like the character of Harley Quinn, which a lot of people do. She's one of the most popular DC characters. Like this is a great series to pick up because you can just pick up one book and read 3. And again, it like they don't overstuff it like a lot of anthology books that DC or Marvel do. They put like 8-12 stories in like one book and they're all like 4 pages long and they're like not long enough to really do anything.
Yeah.
But there's 3 stories and it's like a bigger book, so you actually get some good story out of it. So if you like the character at all, these are great books to pick up. The Black, White, and Redder series. It's Redder because it's a sequel to what they did last year, which is Black, White, and Red with Harley Quinn. Obviously, it's called that because those are the only colors that they use in the book. And yeah, I would recommend it if you're a fan of Harley Quinn, even a little bit. I feel like these stories will kind of make you like her more. If you want to get to know her as a character a little bit more, I highly recommend it. And that's coming out this week at your local comic book store. But hey, what else is coming out this week? Well, you got your Alien 5 from Marvel. You got Alpha Flight #1, new Alpha Flight series.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely you got Batman's. You're going to pick up Alpha Flight?
Yes. I enjoy our Canadian friends up north.
I feel like I used to know all of their names. Definitely don't anymore.
Nope. No idea.
Isn't there a big Sasquatch guy, isn't there?
Yeah. Is it Wendigo?
I thought Wendigo was
no, he's
the bad guy.
The bad guy. And then is it Dr. Squatch or something stupid?
I don't know, but I hope it's Dr. Squatch. What a name.
I gotta pull this up now.
If it's not Dr. Squatch, I'm calling that name.
I can remember North Star, but beyond that,
North Star. I remember North Star.
What do we got? Current members: Aurora, Guardian, Marina, North Star, Puck, Sasquatch. Oh, just Sasquatch.
Oh, just straight up Sasquatch.
Shaman, Snowbird, Talisman, and Vindicator.
I'm telling you right now, to you, Steve, and anyone listening or watching this, I am calling dibs on the name Dr. Squatch. That is a character that I am going to write a comic book about. He's just like the doctor. He's like the doctor for other cryptids. Like they all have to come to him, and he's got one of those old timey like shiny things on his head. I'm doing that. Copyright. I'm copywriting it right now. Sunday, August 13th, 10:58 p.m. I own that character. Co-created by Steve.
I was going to say, I got to at least get a credit on that one. It's amazing.
Anyway, what are we doing? Reading comic books. Batman, Superman, World's Finest,
Is
number
that what
18.
we do around here?
Yeah. Bettie Page, number 3. Children of the Comet, number 2. A book that Steve and I reviewed number 1 of a few weeks ago. Daredevil, number 14. Dark X-Men, number 1. Death of the Venomverse, number 2. I only recently learned about the Venomverse, and now it's dying?
Yep,
Ugh,
apparently.
Whiplash. Dwellings, number 1. Ghost Rider, number 17. The aforementioned Harley Quinn, Black, White, and Redder, number 2. Hawkgirl, number 2. In Hell We Fight, number 3. I think this is the last round of DC's Night Terror books, if I'm not mistaken. Might be one straggler next week, but Night Terror's Black Adam, number 2. Catwoman, number 2. Nightwing, number 2. Punchline, number 2. Superman, number 2. And Wonder Woman, number 2 all come out this week.
It's a lot of number 2s.
It's a lot of number 2s. Well, they're all 2-issue arcs for all the characters, which is cool because it's not dragging on too long. I got my Night Terror's Zatanna number 2 that I'm very excited about reading, but I haven't read it yet. Anyway, Loki number 3. Money Shot Comes Again number 3. Oz Kingdom of the Lost number 1. Red Sonja 2023 number 2. Spider-Man number 11. Star Wars Darth Vader number 37. Tales of the Titans number 2. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 142. The Cull number 1. Uncanny Avengers number 1. And X-Men Red number 14. Steve, besides Alpha Flight, you pulling anything? Reading anything?
I don't know. I might pull that Dark X-Men. That's always interesting. I think the original one was around like 2009, but this team is, I think, Madeline Pryor, Havoc, Archangel, Gambit, Azazel, and some other people that I can't remember.
That's cool. It's a good team.
Yeah, so it leans into the quote unquote grittier version. I don't know. Madeline Pryor is always they're always doing something stupid with her. So
True. Even I know that.
So it's funny. Last night, my wife and I watched Deadpool 2 because
cool.
In my brain I was like, I need to turn things off and just watch something stupid and funny.
Yeah. And
that's very stupid and funny.
Yep.
Fit the bill perfectly. But at one point I had to explain Cable.
Oh yeah. I know.
And she's like, so who's Cable exactly? I'm like, well, now we're into the Summers family tree, and this is its own animal. And it's like, well, it's Jean Grey and Cyclops, and then we got into the whole conversation about Jean Grey being named Marvel Girl. She's like, well, that's derivative. I'm like, yeah, well, welcome to 1963. But like I was like, well, it's Jean Grey and Scott's kid. But it's not actually Jean Grey. It's her clone, Madeline Pryor. And there was this whole thing. And I went down the rabbit hole, and she was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
she said, I want a divorce. Yeah.
Right. It's like, why are you wasting the brain space on this? I'm like, I got to talk to Mike about it on Sundays.
Yeah, I got to be up on my shit.
Yeah. It's the only, I have to remember shit from 35 years ago because I talked to Mike. It's fine.
It's wild what I remember without even thinking about it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it could be X-Men stuff that I haven't thought about in 40 years. Not 40 years because I'd be an infant. But, like in so long, since I was 10 or whatever, I haven't thought about this specific X-Men or their origin or anything like that. But if you ask me about it, I'll be like, yep, this is where I know all this.
Yeah, it just starts spouting out, and you're just like, I should have turned that faucet off.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you got to know who you're talking to before you choose the level of detail you go to.
Right. At least I know my wife is still going to be there.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, Steve's rambling again. Cool. Great. Here we go.
Oh, that's funny.
Yep.
I spent most of last week at my brother-in-law's lake house on a little family vacay.
Nice.
And I read a ton. And it felt great. I read both volumes of Tom King and Greg Smallwood's Human Target, which I have to say is excellent all around.
Nice.
All around excellent. It's gorgeous. The art is just incredible. It's Tom King, so the writing is also incredible. It just touches on a lot of different things, a lot of different themes in that book. and it's kind of the horniest book I've ever read, I think, at the same time. It's not like porn, but it's like, these characters are flirting hard in a way that like made me remember flirting with girls when I was like in my 20s, or I was like, wow, it's great. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend Human Target. Both volumes are out now. I also finished Superman Space Age, finally. Very, very good. And also, I finally read, as I posted about it on our social medias, I finally read X-Men God Loves, Man Kills for the first time ever. And I don't know, Steve, you told me it was great, but you didn't tell me it was the blueprint for all modern X-Men stories.
Yeah. Oh, it's the seminal. It's one of the seminal pieces of Claremont's runs.
Is that the book that solidifies them as an allegory for things like civil rights and LGBTQ movement, or had they touched on that before?
There was plenty of stuff before that. I mean, I believe God Loves, Man Kills was 1982.
Yeah.
And they definitely touched on it before it, but that 100% hit the nail on the head and was like completely non-shrouded in anything, and was like, no, this is what X-Men has been about and is about.
Right. Yeah, they're not being subtle about it.
Right.
It's just, really good. And this is like in the weeds comic stuff, but like I was texting you about, like, the layouts were insane. Like, it was 15 panels on one page.
Yep.
And tons of it's a very, very wordy book. Like, there's a lot of dialogue in that book, and they squeeze it all into pages. It doesn't feel overcrowded. It doesn't feel like too much. Like I said, there's 15 panels on one page when the normal is like 6.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, you think about your normal like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
And it was like, I believe it's 3 by 3 by 3 with like panels in between,
like inserts in the middle. Yeah, it's insane, and it doesn't feel overwhelming. It's still like very easy to read and follow and flow. Yeah,
fine, and
it's really, really well done. And clearly the blueprint for like the first couple X-Men movies, specifically number 2.
Yep.
I feel like it's like they took a lot from that book for X2.
Definitely.
For sure.
Definitely.
And even like I saw like visual stuff and things from the first X-Men movie too. So I was like, okay, I think whoever wrote those movies read maybe 2 X-Men comics. One of them was definitely God Loves, Man Kills.
If they read any of them, one of them was definitely this one.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So anyway, yeah, I had a lot of reading done this week, which is nice.
Nice. I'm trying to think. I caught up on 2 weeks ago. I had reviewed Incredible Hulk #1.
Yeah.
I did read #2. Still great. Like,
oh, good.
And right up your alley too.
It's like
very horror-y,
monster
based, real solid. And then I sent you a picture, but right behind me there, the new addition to the collection, JTC Emma Frost negative space variant.
Yeah, that's cool.
9/8 signed, straight from him. So that was he had some sale of like for like people that had bought stuff from him before, because I had bought I think one of the Skywalker covers from him that was an exclusive, and he sent that out, and I was like, yeah, I'll get that.
Wow.
So
awesome, dude. It
was a nice addition.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Especially coming in after I have held off on some purchases that have wanted to have been made. So
yeah, you and me both have been fighting to keep our wallets in our pockets when we're going into Funky Town lately on some of the first appearances or first issues, like just vintage books that would mean a lot to be in my collection or your collection, Steve. I know.
I was going to say both of the books that have been eyed by either of us are like, they would be apex in the respective collections of like
at
respected books.
Yeah, mine is a few $100s cheaper than yours. I gotta say.
Yeah, yours is much more attainable. Let's put it that way.
I mean, let's just tell the people. I am pining after. They have 2 copies of it in the store. One is a better copy. The more expensive one, I think, is $250. It's the issue of Swamp Thing. Has the first appearance of John Constantine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in pretty good shape. pretty good shape. I love both those characters, specifically Swamp Thing and that run of Swamp Thing. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Mine, on the other hand, is the first appearance of Ahsoka Tano in the Dark Horse Clone Wars #1. And it is they have one copy in the store, and the I believe online it's even raw is going for like $750, and I would love to find a way to make something like that happen, but
yeah, it's too much.
Yeah, it's a little still too rich for my blood. So
yep.
And then with the show dropping in a week, it'll be well out of reach for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, for sure.
But whoever ends up grabbing that copy, they will be a happy person.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah.
Like last week the Mega Millions was like $990 million or something like that. Anytime there's like a big lotto thing and the conversation amongst peers is inevitably shifts to what would you do if you won had this much money? I solidified my answer a few years ago, but if I ever got like hundreds of millions of dollars, I would easily spend 3 of them on a very good condition copy of Action Comics #1.
Right.
100%. Yeah. How could I not do that? Yes.
Yeah. No,
yes.
100%.
Yep. After that, I don't care. After that, I don't care what I do. I'll travel, go somewhere, whatever. But I'm gonna own Action 1 for sure.
Yeah.
Mark my words, lotto people. If I win, I'm buying with your money. It's not your money.
It's the collective's money that turns into your money.
Yes, correct. Yeah. All right. Enough rambling about books that we'll never own. We got one shot for you, and this is like just a fun little thing. Ms. Marvel, not the character, the show based on the character, was recently given the 2023 Television Critics Association Award for Outstanding Achievement in Family Programming. The show is also going to be beginning on ABC the next couple of weeks in the fall, I believe, because everyone's on strike and no one's making TV shows, so they don't have a fall lineup. But I think it's cool because, Steve, you and I both really like the show Ms. Marvel, and I like to see it getting some love from the Television Critics Association. So I think that's cool.
Absolutely. No, and it was a solid show that, again, I feel like you and I both have, of the Marvel shows, have liked the ones where they've just tried something different.
100%. Yeah.
And they definitely did. Like Ms. Marvel, they didn't stick the landing for me, but the show itself was a great watch.
Yeah, I agree.
And I feel like the not sticking the landing thing is just I don't have to restate that. That just comes with the territory of a Marvel show, I guess.
Seems to be. Yeah. I agree.
So
that's funny.
It's like the first 5 issues or 5 episodes, great. 6,
great. I mean, unless we're talking about Secret Invasion, in which.
What do you mean?
I don't think any of those episodes.
Wait, hold on. They're making a TV show about Secret Invasion. I've been Men in Black.
I was gonna say, yeah, I was just gonna make the same Men in Black reference. Yeah. Lucky you. You got selectively Men in Black about Secret Invasion show.
One can only hope.
What a waste of time. But that's all I got. I think that's it. Anything else? Are we missing anything?
No, I think we hit it. If you're one of the new folks that have joined us thanks to Mike passing out cards at his comic extravaganza, feel free to continue to listen to us by subscribing to us on various platforms, primarily Apple Music or Spotify. Leave us a review. Helps trick the algorithm into letting more people know that we exist. Beyond that, check us out on YouTube. Leave us a comment, like, subscribe, and check us out on the socials at Multiverse RPT. Or nope, that's on Twitter.
No, that's
X
the one that we're not
whatever.
really using anymore.
We haven't really touched that in a while. The Multiverse Report on just about everything else you can think of. And
mostly Instagram.
Yeah, a lot of Instagram. I think we double some things onto Facebook or whatever. But also, if you are finding us through one of those channels, please let us know where and when you did, and we'll do something for you.
Okay.
Whether it's a shout out on the pod or whatever, but
we'll give you a shout out. Absolutely.
We just like to know where our people are coming from. I know we've got a lot of local support and whatnot.
For sure. Yeah.
But yeah.
Also, if you give us a 5-star review, we will read that review on the show and also give you a shout out.
100%.
For sure. So let us know if you love us or hate us. And that's it, right? We done?
I think
we did it. We did it. We're good. Okay. Well, in that case, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time in the multiverse.